The Negro marriage. We breed two nigger males with two nigger females. Then we take the nigger male away from them and keep them moving and working. Say one nigger female bear a nigger female and the other bear a nigger male, both nigger females. Being without influence of the nigger male image, frozen with an independent psychology, we raise their offspring into reverse positions. The one with the female offspring will teach her to be like herself, independent and negotiable. We negotiate with her, through her, by her, negotiate her at will. The one with the nigger male offspring, she being frozen, subconscious fear for her life, will raise him to be mentally dependent and weak, but physically strong, in other words, body over mind. Now, in a few years, when these two offspring become fertile or early reproduction, we will mate and breed them and continue the cycle. That is good, sound, and long range comprehensive planning. And brothers and sisters, this is what we see today in our community. Basically, the natural order of the father being the head of the house and the mother being the nurturer is what they're talking about. Willie Lynch learned how to reverse the roles, meaning now the mother would be the head of the household. And this is what has been happening and why you see children without fathers in a household, especially in the black family, because of what Willie Lynch proposed back in the 1700s. So this is what pastors today are talking about and is trying to revert it back to its original position, the way God originally planned it. And this is what we're having problems with. Trying to reverse the order that Willie Lynch put in place so that we can have more males representing the households in the black community, so they can understand that women are not trying to be the head. The only thing we want to do is be helpers. And so we need our men to help us become better nurturers in the family. So we need them to be strong. Amen? Amen. So it was established through the plantation owners. And now we must reverse the script that they implanted in us. Let's continue. Warning: possible interloping negatives. Early, we talked about the non-economic good of the horse and the nigger in their wild or natural state. We talked out the principle of breaking and tying them together for orderly production. Furthermore, we talked about paying particular attention to the female savage and her offspring for orderly future planning. Then more recently, we stated that by reversing the positions of the male and female savages, we create an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon occur and reshift position of the male and female savages. Our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomenon occurring. for they say that the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time. If it can touch some substantial original historical base, and they advise us that the best way to deal with the phenomenon is to shave off the brute's mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomena of illusions, so that each illusion will thrill in its own orbit, something similar to floating balls in a vacuum. This creation of multiplicity of phenomena of illusion entails the principle of cross-breeding the nigger and the horse, as we stated above, the purpose of which is to create a diversified division of labor, thereby creating different levels of labor and different values of illusion at each connecting level of labor, meaning you have the indoor or the house nigger, and you have the yard nigger. This is what they created. You have the light-skinned nigger that competes against the dark-skinned nigger. This is what they created to tear us apart and to keep us enslaved. Amen. The result of which is the severance of the points of original beginning for each sphere illusion. Since we feel that the subject matter may get more complicated as we process in laying down our economic plan concerning the purpose, reason, and effects of cross-breeding horses and niggers, we shall lay down the following definition term for future generation. Orbiting cycle means a thing turned in a given path. Axis means upon which or around which a body turns. Phenomenal means something beyond ordinary conception and inspires awe and wonder. Multiplication or multiplicity means a great number. Means a globe. Cross-breeding a horse means taking a horse and breeding it with an ass, and you get a dumb, backward ass, long-headed mule that is not reproductive nor productive by itself. Cross-breeding niggers mean taking so many drops of good white blood and putting them into as many nigger women as possible, varying the drop by the various tones that you want, and then letting them breed with each other until another cycle of color appears as you desire. Again, they knew exactly what they were doing. They planned this, making a nigger. What this means is this: put the nigger and the horse in a breeding pot, mix some asses and some good white blood, and what do you get? You got a multiplicity of colors, of ass, backward, unusual niggers running, tied to back with ass, long-headed mules. The one productive of itself, the other sterile. The one constant, the others dying. We keep the nigger constant, for we may replace the mule for another tool. Both mule and nigger tied to each other, neither knowing where the other came from, and neither productive for itself nor without each other. Controlled language. Cross-breeding completed for further severance from their original beginning. We must completely annihilate the mother tongue of both the new nigger and the new mule, and institute a new language that involves the new life work of both. You know, language is a particular institution. It leads to the heart of a people. The more a foreigner knows about the language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of that society. Therefore, if the foreigner is an enemy of the country, to the extent that he knows the body of the language, to that extent is the country vulnerable to attack or invasions of a foreign culture. For example, if you take a slave, if you teach him all about your language, he will know all your secrets, and he is then no more a slave, for you can't fool him any longer. And being a fool is one of the basic ingredients of any incidents to the maintenance of the slavery system. Oh God, it is written in black and white for us to read. The making of a slave. For example, if you told a slave that he must perform in getting out our crops, and he knows the language well, he would know that our crops didn't mean our crops, and the slavery system would break down, for he would relate on the basis of what our crops really meant. So you have to be careful in setting up the new language, for the slave would soon be in your house, talking to you as man to man, and that is death to our economy system. In addition, the definition of words or terms are only a minute part of this process. Values are created and transported by communication through the body of the language. A total society has many interconnected value systems. All the values in the society have bridges of language to connect them for orderly working in the society. But for these language bridges, these many value systems would sharply clash and cause internal strife or civil war, the degree of the conflict being determined by the magnitude of the issues or relative opposing strength in whatever form. For example, if you put a slave in a hog pen and train him to live there and incorporate in him to value it as a way of life completely, the biggest problem you would have out of him is that he would worry you about provision to keep the hog pen clean, or the same hog pen and make a slip and incorporate something in his language, whereby comes to value a house more than he does his hog pen. You got a problem? He will soon be in your house. Henty Berry, speaking in the Virginia House of Delegates in 1832, described the situation as it existed in many parts of the South at this time. We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter there, the slaves' minds. If we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. They would then be on a level with the breast of the beast of the field, and we should be safe. I am not certain that we would not do it if we could find out the process, and that on the plea of necessity. From Brown America, The Story of a New Race by Edward R. Embry, 1931, The Viking Press. the troubled world. What should we be doing? So what did you think about making a slave? It may seem like it makes no sense to many people. Many people are going to deny that that could ever happen. But this is what psychologists and psychiatrists and research have shown us, that man plays with our minds, and in the process they reverse the natural order of things, and then we start thinking perversely. The Bible calls it having a reprobated mind. We can't tell right from wrong. And so this was the plan that Willie Lynch put together for the plantation owners. And as a black person, I could say that in reading the Willie Lynch letter and looking at the black brothers and sisters, I can see the plan worked. The sad part is, unless we really look at the letter and make a positive mental note of it and make a decision to change, we won't change. That is also a part of the curse, so that for generations to generations to generations, we, instead of getting better, we get worse. Making a slave. Many people have asked for a copy of this Willie Lynch letter since the movie The Great Debaters had mentioned it. Whether or not this letter was written by Willie Lynch is factual or fictional, the tragedy is the outcome of the premise of this letter, and that is the behavior displayed in some blacks and from other races and cultures that slavery has affected throughout the land can be horrifying. Even up until today, blacks have not been able to trust even members of their own family. If we count the number of years between 1713 and today, it totals 294 years of exhibiting the slave mentality, as I wish to call it. Again, you will find this information in my book, Creative Living series, breaking the cycle of generational curses from a nurse's spiritual and psychological journey, Forbidden Fruit. Does God approve of slavery? In the past, slavery was a means for men to feed themselves or their families during hard times. God did not create slaves, and He set aside a standard for men to get their freedom, called the Year of Jubilee. In Leviticus 25 says, "And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you. Ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family." Leviticus 25. And yet, still, even today, this has not happened. Yet God has given us a means of escape. Now we know God is not like man, that is unable to cure. The scriptures tell us the things that are impossible with men are possible with God. I have been told by foreigners that the American establishment continues to use the system of separation today. However, instead of using it on the blacks, they instill it in every foreigner that enters this country from across the sea. Foreigners are told to stay away from American blacks that have been in this country all their lives and have not accomplished anything. When we look at prestigious blacks in our land today, we see first to third generations of descendants of mixed or offlanders like President Obama. But not all of us are mixed, where we can acknowledge that we have been mixed. Amen. Today, I want to go directly to one of my famous psychoanalysts, Erich Fromm. Erich Fromm was a German social psychologist, psychoanalyst, sociologist, humanist, philosopher, and democratic socialist. He was associated with the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory. Born March 23, 1900, died March 18, 1980. However, in today's economy of evil, we have a new form of slavery called wage slave due to higher debt. Here is what a famous psychoanalyst had to say. Now Erich Fromm, a psychoanalyst, contributed as a personality theorist, and his essential theme: a person feels lonely and isolated because he or she has become separated from nature and from compulsion to pay their bills promptly. He wrote numerous examples of the type of personality characteristics that develop in a democratic capitalistic society in 1947. By making demands upon humans that are contrary to their nature, society warps and frustrates humans. It alienates them from their human situation and denies them the fulfillment of the basic conditions of existence. Both capitalism and communism, for example, try to make an individual into a robot, a wage slave, a non-entity, and they often succeed in driving a person into insanity, antisocial conduct, and we know antisocial conduct is criminal behavior, selfishness, it's all about me, or self-destructive acts. Fromm did not hesitate to stigmatize a whole society as being sick when it failed to satisfy the basic needs of humans in 1955. Fromm's great concern was the problem of a person's relation to society, of which he was convinced of the validity of the following proposition. 1. Humans have an essential inborn nature. 2. Society is created by humans in order to fulfill this essential nature. And 3. No society that has yet been devised meets the basic need of human existence. And 4. It is impossible to create such a society.
For a copy of
This he wrote in
Willie Lynch
1955.
letter. Since the movie
Basically, when we view our society
Whether or not
norm
this letter was
today,
written by
we
Willie
can
Lynch
say Fromm's theory has
is
proven correct.
factual or
The
fictional.
feelings of loneliness and
tragedy
isolation
is the
has
outcome
caused
of the
numerous peer
premise of
pressure.
this letter.
Children
And
having
that is
children
the behavior
as they
displayed
look for
in
love in
some
all the
black
wrong places.
And from
Our
other
youth
races
has changed
and
and many of their
that
idols
slavery
are
has
immoral.
affected throughout the land
Madonna
can be
brought
horrifying.
in the era of sexual
Even up
acting
until
out
today,
on stage
blacks have not
and
been
wearing
able to
barely
trust
anything at
even
all
members
to
of their own
display
family.
how
If
anything
we
goes in
count the
America.
number of years between
Janet Jackson
17,
built
18,
on
and
Madonna's
today,
sexual
it
exposure
told
by
294
bearing her
years
breasts on
of
natural
exhibiting
TV.
the slave mentality
Rappers such
I
as
was
Biggie
before.
Smalls and actor
Again,
Ice
you
Cube
will find
awakened
this
mafia-type
information
behaviors
in my
among
book,
blacks
Creative
by
Living
using
Series,
gun
Breaking the
violence as a
Cycle of
means to
Generational
an
Curses,
end.
from a nurse's spiritual and psychological journey.
I
forbidden
realize that this information
Does God approve of
is a
slavery?
little harsh.
In the past, slavery was
But
a means for men to feed themselves
We must
or
wake
their
up
families during hard times.
to
God did
understand
not create slaves,
exactly where
and
we
He
come
set
from
aside a standard for men
and
to get
the
their
plans
freedom
of the
called
enemy
Year of Jubilee.
and
In
how
Leviticus
we
25
can
says, and ye
stop
shall hallow the 50th
Amen.
year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you. Ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. Leviticus 25. And yet, and still, even today, this has not happened. Yet God has given us a means of escape. Now we know God is not like man, that is unable to cure. The scriptures tell us the things that are impossible with men are possible with God. I have been told by foreigners that the American establishment continues to use this system of separation today. However, instead of using it on the blacks, they instill it in every foreigner that enters this country from across the sea. Foreigners are told to stay away from American blacks that have been in this country all their lives and have not accomplished anything. When we look at prestigious blacks in our land today, we see first to third generations of descendants of mixed or offlanders like President Obama. But not all of us are mixed, where we